That's so funny. I made the highlight package. It was pretty out of left field. I was given that leg by Surf Lifesaving Australia and Surf Lifesaving New South Wales. I think you guys had been given like a certain kind of portion of the relay, and I had been the New South Wales Junior Lifesaver of the Year. And I also like competed a lot in surf lifesaving, and the three of us who ended up, like three of us who had the leg were all like the top junior competitors from Sydney. And it was very like, it was definitely something I didn't think was going to happen. Like I was actually slated to be one of the escort runners. Like a lot of kids who were in sports at the time had been given escort running slots. And I remember my mom telling me that like, oh, you're actually going to carry the torch. I was like, what? Because you didn't see many kids. I mean, not that, 14 was pretty young, and you didn't see many kids like doing it at the time. I had just turned 14 as well. Like, so I was pretty little, which probably worked in my favor because I didn't really think about the magnitude of what I was doing probably until a bit later. There was a surf boat leg that went from Coogee. And so we all kind of had gathered at Coogee. I think that was the staging area. And one of the boys, I think it was Chris Allen, took the torch in Sydney, in Coogee, and got in the surf boat there. And we had kind of rowed around and were waiting. He then gave the torch to Daniel Nielsen, and Daniel Nielsen gave it to me. And I got the flame around the back of Bronte, which I was super stoked on because that was like my beach where I surfed every day. I was in Bronte Surf Club, and that's where we did like the handover. So I was like, this is really cool. Like, like it felt like I was at my kind of zone. And yeah, coming into Bondi, like I had never seen that many people on the cliffs. And we also had this crazy, crazy escort in the water. Like there were so many like people on personal crafts as well who'd come out to see the torch, but especially because Bondi is the beginning of the heads of the harbour, so people had come around. And but there was also like a lot of police, a lot of news cameras, a lot of helicopters, a lot of police trying to keep people back as well. So we had this like giant flotilla of like craft coming around into Bondi. And at the time as well, Bondi was and for people who weren't in Sydney at the time, there was like, we had the beach volleyball stadium at Bondi, and everyone also remembers that because you'd come around the corner on the like coming even just from the road, and you would see this huge like Coliseum thing. So coming around the headland and the cliffs, there was like so many people on the cliffs, and everyone was like cheering. It felt like the Sydney to Hobart, and I was like this little kid, like, yeah. And I had also, we had special torches. We had these special like long life torches because the leg that we had was actually so long. People on land were just running like, 400 meters or something. And we had this leg that was actually quite long because the crew, not me, I just sat there and did nothing, but the crew actually had to row. It's quite a long way from Bronte to North Bondi. So they had to row the whole way there. And we had these long life torches, and I had all of these like specific instructions around what I needed to do at the time. And I mean, this will shock no one, but I actually didn't really listen properly. So I got to lighting the torch, and I didn't realize that I had to turn the gas on, like that I had a specific gas switch for mine. And so we couldn't get it lit. And like, we're sitting there, we're like, this won't go on. And someone had to come over and was like, did you do this? And I was like, yeah. No, didn't do it. So we actually had to have someone from like the organizers come over, because also we had like very specific timings on the gas that we had. And people were like, if she does have the gas on and it's not working, then we're actually going to be in a bit of trouble. So yeah, that whole actually lighting the flame didn't really go off like as seamless as you would think, or it was meant to, because I hadn't listened to some instructions and I hadn't turned the gas on, and it was someone else that came over from like a race organizer who was like, hey, you've got to do this. Did you do this? And I was like, yeah. You know what? It sounds really dumb, but it's actually a little bit overwhelming because the Olympics was so special in Sydney. Like, we all joke about it and we're all like, it was the best games ever, but people loved it. You know, I loved the Olympics. We went to a whole bunch of events. You know, we watched, I watched Ian Thorpe win the 400, you know, and I watched the 4x100 meter freestyle relay when we beat the Americans. So I have all of these amazing memories from the Olympics, and like, it was quite a little bit overwhelming for sure. And even now to look back on it, and you're like, there's a part of me that's like, can't believe I actually did that. You know, like, of all of the things that I've kind of like been involved in with sports in my life, I think that one is like the biggest that I've ever, you know, it's like kind of crazy when I look back. I don't have like many videos or anything, but we do still have the torch, and my mum always takes it into, you know, school to show her kids in her class. But it is very emotional, I think, and it was like a really big thing for a lot of people, like my family, on the day. And like, I think, yeah, for me being so young as well, it was probably the only way that I really coped with it, because I was too young to realize how big of a deal it was until kind of later. And I didn't have, it was only as well when I was kind of getting the torch where I realized like, oh yeah, this is like a huge thing, because you're in this boat and there's news helicopters and there's police and you know, it's like, in some ways it's like you have to make sure that you don't stuff up and like drop the torch or not get the flame lit. And it's like, you kind of, as a little kid, you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But yeah, it's like, it's a really special thing for me to have done, for sure. Being the New South Wales Junior Lifesaver of the Year, I almost feel like that was one of the biggest things I had won at the time. Like, it was, you know, I wasn't like the state champion or anything in the Ironwoman, but I had won that, and I was just, my mum, I was like, oh, like, I felt really like chuffed to have won it, which sounds stupid, but I was, you know, sometimes you win like community awards like that and you always think, oh, I feel like there's so many people that are doing like so many great stuff, like great things in that area, and you almost feel like you want to share it with other people. But yeah, I loved the Bronte Surf Club was such a big part of my life, and Sydney branch and surfing and going away to state titles and Aussies and stuff. I actually really remember my mum being like, sorry, what? Like, it was like such a big thing for me to win it as well. And I was like, I felt like I had come out of nowhere. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I spent my whole life at the surf club so much, you know, until I was probably like 15 or 16. Like, literally my friends and I were down there all day. And if we weren't, you know, if we weren't in the surf club, you know, stealing food on a Sunday afternoon when they did all of that, Bronte used to do all of these sandwiches and things, like a social aspect, or we were like pretending to be on patrol but actually surfing. I probably stopped competing. I stopped competing for Bronte Surf Club probably in like the under 19s, would have been called the under 18s, but you know, I'm competed in the opens a bit as a junior, but I think, gosh, it must have been like 2003 or 2004 was my last year at Aussies. And I was starting to surf as well. I'd been doing both sports and I'd been surfing competitively. And then I ended up, you know, doing the Surfing Pro Tour. I went and did the WSL qualifying series and qualified for the championship tour, and I was there for 6 years. So I had, yeah, I feel like I was like, yeah, all that surfing I did on patrol, that was my training for the tour. But it was, I mean, look, when I grew up on the beach, like the best, and it's still the same in Waverley Council, like the best surfers in Waverley are the lifeguards. The best surfers in Randwick Council are the lifeguards. And there's really strong like surf club culture there, I feel like, too. So I'd gone through the surf club, and then, yeah, I ended up surfing professionally. I retired the end of 2011, and now I work in the women's tour of the WSL. I'm the VP of tours and competitions.